When a crisis strikes, one of the very first things that tends to be restricted, registered, or outright seized is firearms and ammunition. Throughout history, whether in times of martial law, political upheaval, or large-scale emergencies, governments have moved quickly to control weapons. Why? Because firearms represent the ability of individuals to defend themselves, protect their property, and potentially resist unlawful authority. In the eyes of a panicked government, that independence is a threat. If you've legally acquired your firearms, you might assume you're in the clear, but during a state of emergency, laws change rapidly. Local or federal mandates may demand surrender of specific weapons, impose registration on unregistered firearms, or restrict transport and usage. In urban areas especially, checkpoints and house-to-house sweeps have occurred historically, and they could again. Even if you're a law-abiding citizen, you may still be seen as a risk if you're armed and prepared while others are desperate. That's why every prepper must take both strategic and legal steps to protect their firearms before a crisis. This means not just owning them, but storing them in a way that's secure, discreet, and separate from your primary living space. Safe storage is essential. Think beyond the standard gun safe. Diversify storage locations. Consider decoy safes, hidden compartments, or off-site secure storage that you can access when needed. The fewer people who know what you have, the better. The same logic applies to ammunition. Ammo is heavy, traceable, and just as targeted as the weapon itself. Many preppers make the mistake of keeping all their ammunition in one obvious location. Instead, break it up and store it in different places, some hidden in plain sight, others more deeply concealed. Remember, if someone finds your weapons, they'll immediately look for your ammo, and let's not forget about accessories, magazines, scopes, and cleaning kits. These items can also be restricted in emergencies. Keep extra parts, but don't stockpile them in one obvious spot. Most importantly, stay within the law at all times. Hiding your weapons doesn't mean you're breaking the law. It means you're safeguarding your rights and your family's safety from opportunistic overreach. When a crisis begins, the real danger isn't just what's outside your home. It's who shows up at your door. Be ready, be legal, and be smart. Another item that will likely be seized early in a crisis, unless you've hidden it well, is fuel. Gasoline, diesel, propane, and even firewood will become instant targets for control and confiscation. The government may justify this by claiming it's needed for emergency services or to prevent hoarding, but make no mistake, once fuel becomes scarce, having your own supply turns you into a priority target. Fuel is freedom. It powers your vehicle for bug-out plans. It runs generators to keep your family warm, safe, and fed. It allows you to cook food, boil water, and keep communication devices charged. That's why fuel isn't just a resource, it's a lifeline. And during a large-scale emergency, that lifeline becomes extremely valuable, even dangerous to own openly. Authorities may come door-to-door, or asking questions, issuing ration cards, or outright taking excess supplies for the public good. If your home smells like stored gasoline or they spot propane tanks near your shed, expect questions. If not seizures, neighbors might report you, especially if tensions are high and supplies are low. The smart prepper doesn't just stock fuel, they hide it. Never keep your entire stash in one place. Bury some in weatherproof containers or store it in outbuildings far from your main residence. Label containers as something mundane, like cleaning solvent or tractor oil. Use camouflage and misdirection to avoid attention. Also consider diversifying your fuel types. If all you store is gasoline and it goes bad or gets taken, you're stuck. Propane, wood, kerosene, and even solar options offer flexibility and resilience. Each has different storage and usage benefits, but more importantly, having a mix makes you less vulnerable. Think beyond just quantity, consider access. If you're storing 100 gallons of fuel, but it's locked behind your garage door, It won't help if you have to evacuate and leave it behind. Keep some fuel mobile pre-staged in your vehicle or bug-out trailer. Keep siphons, funnels, stabilizers, and filters with your supplies. Ultimately, fuel is like gold in a crisis. The difference is gold can't heat your home or get you out of danger. That's why governments, neighbors, and even looters will come for it. The only way to stay in control is to prepare now, quietly, legally, and smartly. Hide your fuel like your life depends on it, because one day it just might. Another high-priority item likely to be seized in a crisis is firearms and ammunition. When governments declare states of emergency, especially during civil unrest or large-scale disasters, one of the first things they often do is restrict or confiscate weapons under the justification of maintaining order and public safety. But for preppers, this isn't about rebellion. It's about survival, self-defense, and protecting your family. If you own guns legally today, that doesn't mean you'll be allowed to keep them tomorrow when panic sets in. History has shown this repeatedly. In the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, for example, law enforcement went door-to-door confiscating firearms from law-abiding citizens, leaving many defenseless in a time of chaos. If that happened once, it can, and likely will, happen again. The logic behind this kind of seizure is simple. If people are scared and desperate, authorities assume they might become violent. But the reality is, criminals will never give up their guns. Only good citizens will. That's why preppers must think ahead, not only by owning the right tools, but by having a smart strategy for how and where they store them. Don't keep all your firearms in the obvious places like a gun safe in the bedroom closet. That's the first place anyone will look, whether it's officials or looters. Think layers, decoy safes, hidden compartments, off-site caches. If you live in a rural area, you might bury a sealed, waterproof container underground with a backup firearm and ammo, accessible if your home stash is taken or destroyed. Another tip is to keep a low profile. Don't flaunt your collection, don't post pictures online, don't brag to neighbors. The fewer people who know what you have, the safer you'll be. In a crisis, word travels fast, and desperation makes people do unthinkable things. Also, consider alternatives. Non-lethal weapons like pepper spray, slingshots, or even crossbows won't draw as much attention but can still be effective. If you're caught in a situation where firearms are banned or gone, having backup tools means you're not completely exposed. In the end, firearms are one of the most powerful equalizers in a survival situation, but only if you still have access to them when things fall apart. Don't just own them, plan to protect them, because when the system fails, the last line of defense is you. Another high-risk item for seizure during a crisis is large quantities of cash or precious metals like gold and silver. In times of national emergency, whether economic collapse, martial law, or large-scale civil unrest, governments often implement financial controls. These may include freezing bank accounts, limiting withdrawals, and yes, even confiscating physical wealth deemed to be excessive or unreported. If you think this sounds extreme, look at history. During the Great Depression, the U.S. government ordered the confiscation of privately held gold in 1933. It's not conspiracy theory, it's precedent. Cash, especially in large amounts, raises red flags during audits or searches. If you're pulled over or your home is raided under martial law, thousands of dollars in bills can be assumed to be ill-gotten or intended for illicit purposes, even if it's simply your emergency fund. The same goes for precious metals. In a desperate economy, these become both valuable and suspicious. So what can you do? First, avoid keeping all your financial resources in one place. Diversify. Keep a portion in your home, hidden in secure, inconspicuous locations like a hollowed-out book, under floorboards, or inside innocuous-looking containers. Don't rely solely on bank accounts or safe deposit boxes. Those can be frozen or accessed by the government without warning. Second, use layering and redundancy. If you store silver coins in your home, don't put them all in one stash. Create multiple small caches, ideally in places that don't seem valuable: attics, sheds, behind wall outlets. This way, even if one is found, others remain safe. Consider off-site storage options that aren't tied to your identity. That might mean burying a sealed PVC tube in a discreet outdoor location, or using a trusted relative's property for remote hiding. Keep detailed maps or clues stored securely in your survival documents, so nothing is forgotten. Also, think about converting part of your cash into barter. Friendly items like alcohol, fuel, or medical supplies. These are less likely to be seized and can still be traded when traditional currency becomes worthless or restricted. Ultimately, your financial independence is just as critical as your food or water supply. It's what allows you to move, adapt, and make decisions without begging for help. But in a crisis, anything that gives you freedom could be seen as a threat. Hide it smart, spread it wide, and never put all your gold in one basket. Another category of items that could be among the first to be seized during a crisis is fuel. Gasoline, diesel, propane, or any other combustible resource. In any emergency, mobility and heat become top priorities, and fuel represents both power and freedom. Whether it's powering a generator, cooking meals, staying warm in winter, or bugging out of a danger zone, those with fuel have a significant advantage, and authorities know it. During national emergencies, fuel is often one of the first things rationed or controlled. You've seen it before. Hurricanes, blizzards, or civil unrest leading to long lines at gas stations, purchase limits, or total shutdowns of supply. In an even more extreme scenario, economic collapse or martial law, governments or emergency agencies may confiscate private fuel stores for the greater good, redistributing it to official vehicles or essential services. If your home has a visible stockpile of red gas cans or propane tanks, it's a beacon saying, "This person is prepared, take from them." To prevent this, discretion is your best friend. First, avoid stacking fuel containers in plain sight. If you store gasoline or diesel at home, keep it in a locked shed, a covered storage box, or camouflaged inside a garage behind less conspicuous items. Propane tanks can be painted dull colors and hidden in outdoor storage bins or disguised as part of your landscaping or grilling setup. Second, think in terms of redundancy and distribution. Don't keep all your fuel in one place. A few gallons in the garage, some in a hidden container in the backyard, maybe a few more miles away in a discreet off-site location like a hunting cabin or bug-out shed. If one stash is seized or compromised, you haven't lost everything. Also consider storing alternative fuels like alcohol, based cooking fuel, solar battery packs, or even wood if you live in a rural area. These are less regulated, easier to hide, and just as valuable when the grid goes down. Backup power banks, rechargeable tools, and solar panels may fly under the radar more easily than rows of gas cans. The bottom line is this: fuel equals power, and in desperate times, power is exactly what others will try to take from you. So stock up quietly, store it smartly, and never give others a reason or opportunity to make your lifeline their asset. The final, and perhaps most overlooked, category of items likely to be seized in a crisis is communications gear. Radios, walkie-talkies, satellite phones, ham radios, and even encrypted devices that allow for secure messaging or offline contact with the outside world can be flagged as suspicious or unauthorized by authorities during emergencies. Why? Because control over information is just as critical as control over food or fuel. In a high-stakes scenario, the flow of communication becomes tightly monitored, and anyone who can operate independently is seen as a potential threat or outlier. This is especially true in cases of martial law, curfews, or grid collapse. In such events, the government or military might issue restrictions on unauthorized broadcasts or transmissions. They may confiscate radios or communication equipment from civilians under the pretense of preventing panic or preserving national security. If you're caught with a high-powered ham radio and no license, or a satellite phone in a restricted zone, you could become a target for seizure or surveillance. For preppers, this means two things: concealment and minimal footprint. If you own ham radios, learn how to break them down into smaller components for easier storage or hiding. Store your antennas and base units separately. A simple plastic bin labeled garage tools or camping gear can keep your gear out of sight but within reach. Consider having backups that require no infrastructure: hand, crank radios, short-range walkie-talkies with encryption settings, or even analog signal mirrors or flares for non-electric signaling. These are less likely to be flagged, but still provide critical means of reaching others when the grid is down. Keep documentation to a minimum. If possible, don't draw attention to your purchases of comms gear. Buy in cash when you can, or avoid linking your identity with items that could later raise questions. In tense times, owning a satellite phone could be interpreted as preparing for something officials don't want you to be ready for. Finally, educate your family or group on how and when to use the gear. A hidden ham radio is useless if no one knows how to operate it. Practice now quietly. Because when the power goes out, the towers go down and panic spreads. Your ability to send and receive real-time information will be as valuable as food or shelter. And if they come looking for it, you'll want to make sure they don't find it.